Hi, I'm Tim Tyler, and this is a video about Methusalahites. The video's title refers to a short story by G.K. Chesterton entitled The Methuselahite. That story describes Methusalahites, people whose religion it is to live for as long as they can. I've noticed an increase in the number of Methusalahites around recently. Methusalahites are one of the types of human which it can be a bit of a puzzle for biologists to explain, since standard evolutionary biology suggests that organisms can be expected to devote themselves to the task of propagating their genes and not to living for a long time. There are several elements that need to be taken into account when considering explanations for this phenomenon. One is that behaviour of human beings is often influenced by memes as well as by DNA. The human mind is fertile ground for memes, and once they take root, it is often necessary to invoke their differential reproductive success when explaining the resulting behaviour patterns. Another factor is that rapid mimetic evolution has had a large impact on the environment, which now has many differences from the ancestral one. This results in organisms finding themselves in unfamiliar territory, which they do not yet have DNA-based adaptations to deal with. Organisms are supposed to have mechanisms to help deal with these kinds of stresses. They have mimetic immune systems, which are intended to allow the organisms to accept symbiotic memes and reject ones which have a negative impact on their own DNA fitness. They also exhibit phenotypic plasticity, and so they have brains which are supposed to allow them to cope with slightly different environments. However, clearly, in the Methusalahites, these mechanisms fail to preserve the organism's primary goal, and the organism malfunctions and gets into a muddle about its purpose in life. Looking at things from a psychological point of view, typically Methusalahites come to believe that they are their own personalities, and that preserving this aspect of themselves is what is most important in life. Of course, from the perspective of evolutionary biology, this is a terrible mistake for an organism to make. Organisms are supposed to believe that their immortal essences is what is important, that which might live beyond their death. In other words, their genes are what matters most in life. By contrast, personalities are not regarded as being very important by nature. They are temporary constructions, designed to be discarded in each generation. For an organism to sacrifice its potentially immortal essence for the sake of a temporary fabrication whose entire purpose in life it is to preserve that essence is a catastrophe from the organism's point of view, biologically speaking. We should not expect to see very many organisms like that around, since they will typically breed themselves out of the gene pool. However, we do see some such organisms, Methusalahites, and it seems that their numbers are increasing. Now, among modern humans, behaviour that's maladaptive from the point of view of DNA is relatively common. There are suicides, homosexuals, monks, self-inflicted vasectomies, and many other ways to fail to prioritise the welfare of your own DNA. The Methusalahites are just one example, so why am I making a whole video about them? I view the proliferation of Methusalahites as a manifestation of the rise of memes, and I have a special interest in the phenomenon since Methusalahites can help to illustrate the idea of a mimetic takeover. Methusalahites often value the persistence of their personality more than they value the persistence of their own genetic makeup. They may be made out of DNA and protein, but their value systems have moved into the mimetic realm, and often they claim that they would not object to their brains being frozen, sliced, scanned, and then their minds being uploaded into a computer, assuming that a suitably stable and rewarding simulated environment awaited them there. As the associated memes proliferate, I expect this type of aging cult will become increasingly popular. Methusalahism already has some more extreme manifestations, and some people are dreaming of rejuvenating themselves, attaining personal immortality, and of ending the aging process. Attaining personal immortality requires that the chance of accidental death be minimised, and so the only way to have much chance of evading death indefinitely is to make sure that you can be copied and backed up. In some cases, people plan to use the death rituals of cryonics to help them attain immortality. Cryonics seems rather like a modern version of the Egyptian death cults. However, it does have a slightly better chance of working than the Egyptians could hope for. At the moment, things like cryonic resurrection seem rather unlikely to be realised in the short term. The required technologies still seem to be a considerable distance away. However, as time passes, these dreams will gradually become more detailed and realistic, and consequently more people will entertain them. I like to take a memes-eye perspective of all this. The dreams of the Methusalahites can be seen as a manifestation of the desire of memes for longevity. Currently, memes can only reproduce horizontally, from mind to mind. However, only some sorts of mental phenomena can make such leaps through the air from one mind to another. The other ones must remain locked up inside the cranium. When the body dies, it takes much of the contents of the mind with it. If minds could be copied and backed up, then more value could potentially be preserved across the generations without things having to be continually reinvented. Pathogens are often quite prepared to sterilize their hosts in order to take advantage of the host's sexual energies for their own ends. Some pathogens use part of the energy of their hosts to boost their hosts' repair and maintenance systems, and to prolong their lives to allow them to infect as many other hosts as possible. In the case of Methusalahites, the importance of reproduction is often downplayed, while the importance of living for a long time is exaggerated. The Methuselahite brains have been hijacked by a mimetic infection, which uses their bodies to propagate itself, spreading memes at the expense of genes. The value systems of the Methusalahites are such that memes are given greater value than DNA. These folk believe that what matters most about them is their personality and memories. They think that they are their mind and its memes. It is sometimes thought that memes are dependent on DNA for survival. Also, it is not very common in biology for pathogens to displace their primary hosts. However, considering the Methusalahites illustrates how the dependency of memes on DNA could one day become history. If and when the Methusalahites attain their potential immortality by uploading their minds into computers, where at last they can be backed up, they need not be dependent on their DNA-made bodies anymore. Enjoy.